Morning everybody. So it's bank holiday and I decided to change the horses back over to their other routine last night because it's getting quite a bit colder at night, but mostly because it's dark in the mornings now, which means I can't ride early anymore, and that really messes up sort of my hours and everything that I have to do during the day with work and everything. So it's much easier if the horses are in at night again once I can't ride in first thing in the morning. So they are. Tommy was very funny yesterday because he was so tired, I think, because they only came in for a couple of hours in the morning and then they went out again, and he was so tired he spent a lot of the day standing by the gate trying to sleep. He's just finished his breakfast, just needs eating his, and he's put Tommy out in the secchi. Basil's just munching his. So I will put Tommy out, and then the other two will probably finish their dinner, and then I will let you know the plan for today's video. I've done all the mucking out and got all the hay nets ready and things. I've let the horses yesterday during the day and today during the day come around here, around the back of the stables, because the grass was getting really long. It's still quite long, but I tend to also let them in the arena so that it gives Tommy an escape hatch, because as you guys probably know, sometimes Chesney chases him, so I don't want him stuck in a small area. I want him to be able to, so he can get down here as well quite easily. The sun has come out from the cloud, which you probably saw a minute ago. So I've come down to the shade. Basil's eating the hedge mostly. Oh, now he's going to eat the grass, which is what he's supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be trimming the grass around the edge of the arena because it's getting a bit long. Chesney's right up there, and you can probably see Tommy. Today I thought I'd do a little video about the healthy checks, things like that I have done or do at this time of year, at the end of the summer before the winter. The boys obviously have a farrier every 6 weeks. Now mostly that's because of Basil. Basil has typical thoroughbred feet which are not very good, and he needs regular feet trimming and his shoes replacing, as they tend to get loose after 6 weeks. Because it's easier just to get them all done together, Tommy and Chesney have their feet trimmed every 6 weeks as well. It's not necessary really to have their feet trimmed every 6 weeks. They could go 8 weeks, and so in fact some horses will go 8 weeks without having their shoes done as well. Like, it really depends on how good their feet are and how quickly their feet grow as well, as to how often the farrier needs to come. But once you get to know your horse, then you can get a routine in, and I always try to book the next appointment before the farrier leaves, so that I know he's coming, I know the horses are going to be done, and it's just easy. It prevents problems usually, and yeah, so I always do that every 6 weeks without fail. Like clockwork, they have their feet done. I see they're having a nice time over here. The other thing I obviously do routinely throughout the year is every day pick out their feet and give them a check over for any new cuts and injuries and stuff. Basil nearly always has some little new nick or something, either on his leg or on his body, because he's got such thin skin. He very easily gets a little nick or something. Chesney hardly has to touch him for him to have a little bite mark and break the skin a little bit, and they're funny. And thorns or anything in the field as well, easily just cut his skin. Chesney, you can tell if he's been eating in the hedge around the field, because he also gets cuts just on his head On his white blaze you can see the blood, but generally they're not too bad, but I always check them over obviously every day when I'm picking out the feet, and I see them twice a day, so they're not going to be injured for long before I find them, which is always a good thing, you know. It's nice to have them properly checked regularly, and it also means, because I see them every day, I get to know all their normal lumps and bumps. Tommy's got a lot of scars from his previous life all over him, so I know which are new marks and which are old marks now. And Chesney and Basil. Chesney's got lots of lumps and bumps being older, but so has Basil actually. A lot of them, or most of them, he came with, which I guess he got when he was racing. So you get to know then which they've got and which ones are new. So those are sort of things I do regularly. The other things which I do throughout the year, well, what I do is I make a plan at the beginning of the year for my worming, my worm egg counts, and my tapeworm testing. So obviously there's times of year that it's recommended that you tapeworm test or worm for tapeworm, so that's in the spring and the autumn, and you're fully recommended to worm for encysted small redworm in the middle of the winter. I've written quite a couple of blogs about worming, so I might link them in the box below so you can have a look at that. In the last few years it's recommended to do worm egg counts now instead of just worming. It used to be recommended to worm every 6 to 8 weeks throughout the year. Now I worm at Christmas. I do tapeworm testing in the spring and October time, and then this last few years I've done 3 egg counts throughout the year, but I think I'm going to reduce Chesney and Basil to just having 2. I shall leave Tommy on 3. Tommy, obviously I've had him 2 years. He has had 2 February, well, is it February? The first worm egg count I do of the year is always clear for all of them. The other 2 are always clear on the others as well, but Tommy isn't. So I'm going to, as I say, just egg count, I think, Basil and Chesney twice in the year, and then I'm going to slip an extra one in for Tommy because he's likely to need worming. So then he will be wormed. This year he's been wormed 2 more times than the others, but I'm not very far from a reservoir, so that's what that is. All the birds have suddenly taken off from the reservoir. Anyway, as I say, I've got the tapeworm test coming up in a few weeks' time, so that's always something I do in October. The other things that I have in autumn time that I do with the horses, so obviously that's part of sort of their pre-winter check for my horses. Most people obviously will be done at different times of year, is that they have their annual vaccinations and they have their teeth rasped as well. I get the dentist regularly every year to come out and check their teeth and do suitable rasping that's needed. It obviously doesn't totally prevent things happening. As you'll probably remember if you've been watching my videos for a while, Basil had to have a tooth out a couple of years ago, so that it didn't stop that happening. The dentist had been probably 9 or 10 months beforehand, so it doesn't totally mean that you're not going to have any issues, but by having them done regularly, it's less likely that you're going to have problems. Certainly with them being rasped regularly, they're not going to have all cuts inside their mouths and stuff from sharp edges on their teeth. So that's something I always do annually. Some horses need doing 6 monthly, but my dentist has always said that annually is fine for my 3. So because Chesney has to be sedated for the dentist, he doesn't get nasty, he just gets really strong and won't stand still. So we found it's easier to sedate him. I time it in with vaccinations for the horses, because then it's only one vet call out. Not sure where they're all going. You going, Tommy? So they'll be having their annual vaccinations again. I think it's at the end of October. I have it all on my calendar. And I only vaccinate for tetanus and flu. You probably realise my horses actually don't really go anywhere. They don't mix much. I don't take Basil to any shows or anything, and we don't have any horses that they can touch or reach from their field. So I have decided not to include Strangles in my regular worming. I probably would if my horses were on a yard or somewhere where there were other horses, or if they went to shows regularly. But as they don't, I just stick to tetanus and flu. You can also vaccinate for herpes if you want. I'll pop a link in the bar below about vaccinations and about some of the things you can vaccinate against, in case you want to look into it more, because I have written blogs about those things in the past. I always like my boys to be carrying a little bit of extra weight going into the winter. Basil always loses some over the winter. And if you remember earlier this year when I was slightly worrying because the grass wasn't coming through and Basil was looking really quite thin, but it did finally come through and he has recovered. So I do like them to be to carry a little bit of extra weight into the winter. But if your horse doesn't lose weight over the winter, then you've got to try and maintain it. Tommy also lost weight in February last year, so he got down to a nice level before the spring grass came through as well. And Chesney just, well, we've been struggling obviously because of his Cushing's this year. So, they're going on a walkabout. So, his weight is a little bit difficult to judge because it's all sort of strangely redeposited at the moment. However, he is starting to look a lot better. And they're all looking very well at this time of year, which, as long as they don't get poorly, is okay. They're all looking very dusty because they've all had a nice roll in the sand in the arena. I don't know why they like it so much, but it must be because it's more coarse and it must be more scratchy for them, which I guess they like. That's it for my video today then. Thanks for the request earlier this week, which I hope has fitted in okay with the video I sort of got planned about autumn health checks for the horses that I've got coming up. Obviously, as well as the horses having a bit of an overhaul before the winter, I've got lots of jobs to do with the stables and the field and things, getting them all ready as well, clearing up after the dusty summer. So I shall probably be doing some videos which will include all those things in the next few weeks as usual. But thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Bye!